Hey everybody, and welcome to the Brian Samoa Show. A little bit of a different intro today because we're going to hop on to part 2 with Dr. Leo Cormanick for all things Dopey Challenge. So this is going to focus a little bit more leading up to race day, resting up to it, proper fueling, how to handle the race weekend, some rehab and prehab tips for the races each and every day, and then how to just enjoy the ride. Thanks for joining us.
What if you have people who, again, they're just getting a little bit beat up? They're not injured, but they're definitely a little worse for the wear getting to the last 3-4 weeks of training here. What would you recommend to those people that, after a run, maybe they're a little bit extra sore for the rest of the day or the next day, and then they're fine?
This might be a longer answer than you would want, but it's important to understand what is an injury and what's just soreness. So an injury is actually something that alters your running gait. You run different because of the pain. Even if it's, I only run different for like 10 minutes and then it warms up and I feel better. Well, that's an injury. That's something you should obviously focus on. So get that treated. Typically, if you're just beat up and you're just not so recovered and you just know your legs are just dead or you're just not sleeping well and something's like happening, well, then in those instances, then you should have a talk with your coach or consider your plan and scale back the volume and maybe think about leaning into different recovery measures like cross training a little bit more, maybe biking or elliptical, something to just keep the cardio up and not the pounding on the legs from running. Running is more demanding than biking and elliptical by, basically you have to bike 5 times more than running on for time for it to equate to the same output. So it's important to understand that those are just easier measures. And then for really what you're after though is what are some actionable items that people can do?
My mind.
Yeah.
You know me or something?
A little bit, just a little bit. But I think that some actionable items would be just up the protein intake more than normal.
What would that be?
So most people, I think an average person probably should aim for 1 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. And when you are in marathon training, it'd be smarter to go up towards 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So up the protein more than normal. Obviously try to lean more into the sleep. And if you have access to spas or some other like recovery devices like Normatex, or go to a sauna or get a massage or get treatment or something like that, like from a chiro or a PT, these are all going to be things that can accelerate that process. So if you notice you're a little bit dinged up, maybe just get a massage, get an adjustment, lean into sauna work, maybe back off a little bit on running and lean a little bit more into cross training, up your protein. These are all kind of easy things you can do. And then another easy hack you can do is increase your creatine intake. You should be taking creatine 5 grams. Even women. Absolutely. It's not a muscle building thing. It's not going to make you jacked. That's not what it is. It actually doesn't even do that. It's mainly an energy production thing. So creatine provides an extra electron in the electron transport chain. That's basically all it does. So it doesn't have anything to do with building muscle. It's not raw material for that. It's not what it's for. It just got hijacked by the power by the bodybuilding community.
Funny story about creatine. I don't know if you know this about me, but I remember being in high school. I don't know if I ever told you this story. I remember being in high school, and one of the days that I didn't feel like doing gym, I just went, we could either like do whatever the gym class was doing, or you could go into the weight room. But if you went into the weight room, there was nobody watching what you were doing. So a lot of us girls would tend to do that, except for me and my friend Kelly. We usually did like to actually play the sports with the boys. But so this particular day I was in the weight room, and and there were a couple grades ahead of me, but a couple of the boys I think they were part of the football team, but they were actually doing a workout. And I went to drink their water because I knew them and I was just thirsty. And they like spazzed. They're like, no, you can't have that. You can't have that. And it was just because it had creatine in it. But it was just funny because back then in the late 90s, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger if you have a sip of my creatine.
Oh my gosh.
Well, kind of to finish the creatine point though. So most people should take it at 5 grams a day, just period. But when you are in marathon training and you're feeling a little bit under the weather, not under the weather, but just a little bit tired, or you're sensing you're kind of getting a little bit more beat up, then up it to 10 to 15 grams per day.
So a couple weeks ago, I felt sick. I had this nastiness that was going on that everybody has here this time of year. And I did strength training the whole time. I didn't run, but I did the strength training to make sure that I kept up on something, because a lot of it is lower body. So I'm keeping those legs moving. I'm keeping that going, but it was something I could do in my house. I felt good doing it, but I didn't feel bad about missing the running. Just a week, but then I got right back into it.
Yeah, that's smart. And that's a great example of exactly how you would pivot and just absorb the situation you're in, just let your body recover. It's not worth pushing through. It's not worth digging yourself deeper in a grave with that. But most people that are obsessed with plans and obsessed with being perfectionists, running's just not a great sport for that. It's just not. Again, there's so much data, there's so much quantification of things. There's so many things that are thrown at you that if you have that kind of mind, I'm sorry, it's going to be a hard existence for you.
Well, no, Jeff Galloway is 28 weeks of training. And so it's a long time. So you've got to, you've got to know that you're going to miss some of that.
Life is
And-
going to happen in
and
28 weeks, right?
And he even said, do as many of these as you can. But he said the same thing that you did. If you hit a really, if you're starting to get into that training and it's getting bigger and bigger and you miss a week, pick up where you left off, not pick up where you're going. Because he said it'd be dangerous to try to get that higher mileage. So I thought that was great advice.
Funny thing that I always hear either at the clinic or from personal people that we know personally that see you race, they're always like, he just had on like an old school watch. There was no like 10 feet. Yeah. People will comment on how you don't have some huge Garmin or this, like you're very old school, very simplistic. Because as you mentioned way early on, running can be so simple, right? You just go out your door and you can run. Technically, you can run with any pair of shoes or even barefoot. Probably wouldn't do that for very long. But it is funny how, especially here in the US, we then take this simple thing and we can hijack it, right? And there's all these different, like you mentioned, you can get data up the wazoo. And so you can wear all different kinds of things and watches and bands that measure so many different things. And sometimes people will get lost in that in ways to hope to help themselves, but then it can actually kind of set them back.
Sabotage.
So you touched upon creatine and protein. What are some other good supplements to take throughout a training cycle or long term if you're going to keep on running?
I think we can get over supplemented in this time, in this day and age, but I think if you're just eating properly and you're eating smart, really the only other ones that you should add in is probably just vitamin D. If you feel a little bit under the weather, add in some vitamin C, but maybe a multi, but even then I would just say like just okay on that. I think a lot of doctors would scoff at that, but I do think like the biggest thing is just eating healthy consistently. But vitamin D is a non-negotiable.
Especially if you're up north with us.
Yeah, it's just a non-negotiable, period. And sodium is another thing that you should obviously think about. So you shouldn't avoid sodium. So it's not going to make your blood pressure go crazy. It's if you take too much of it, say you have a lot of salt on a meal, like within 30 minutes your body balances it out, so it's really not that big of a deal. But it is important to consistently take when you are training for longer distances. I mean, if you don't have a lot of sodium in your system, then you're not going to retain water, so a lot of the water you're drinking is just coming right out of you. So that's how your body knows to retain water, is by how much the osmolarity, going back to high school chemistry. It's if there's a lot of sodium in the body, then your body retains more water, and that obviously helps the system recover better. It obviously can help your fascia, it can help your muscles move better, it can help everything recover. And it's also really important for people who have osteoporosis or osteopenia, because if that's the case, then your body has leached a lot of calcium and magnesium and manganese throughout the years. And so it's important for your body to kind of keep those heavy supplements in the bone. And a lot of times it'll leach those out to balance the loss of sodium in the bloodstream. So sodium can obviously keep those in the bone as well. It's got, I mean, it might not seem like a supplement that you should go out of your way to take, but the products that we endorse with USA Track is LMNT, so Element. It's great. It's got, pretty much all you need in it. So it doesn't have calories because it's not meant to be a caloric thing. It's meant to just replace electrolytes. And yeah, so Brian just mentioned watch sugar. Like I said, if you're eating healthy, then that's the best thing. But that's also, so you want to avoid processed foods. You want to avoid sugar, added sugar. These are just very dangerous things for the body in general. And they will inflame you and they will make things hurt more.
Yeah, like it's always surprising to me how much people don't understand the sugar content of things. So even things like Gatorade, that's not the best necessarily because of the food dyes that most of them would have, so even if you are doing Gatorade, if I have to get that for the kid, we're traveling and I don't have stuff with us at home, I would at home, then I'm always looking for things with no food dyes, very, little to no sugar. And even like I always see people talk about liquid IV. And one time I went and looked at the content of that because I didn't have an element with me. And I'm like, yeah, heck no, I'm not taking this.
Well, you did that with me. I was using liquid IV and I said, oh, look at the stuff I've got. It's so great. And you took one look at it and you went, and you had the other one and you threw that down and said, take this instead. And I'm like, why? You said it's way too much sugar.
Yeah. And
yeah.
So if somebody eats bad, eats fast food all the time, eats a lot of processed foods, eats a lot of sugar, and then they're like, well, what supplement should I take? Well, does it really matter? Honestly,
Right.
it's
At
like,
that point.
And so that's why it's just so important to have a good diet. And then it's like, yeah, well, if you have a good diet, then talk to me now. Like, because otherwise you really are just kind of wasting everything, because if you're taking a multi, your body is so distracted with all the crap you've given it. It's really not even utilizing that to the best of its advantage. So, it's just important to eat healthy. There's just it's a non-negotiable. And you can maybe slack off a little bit when you're past dopey and you're not training for something. But I think when you're in preps for a marathon, then you got to play by the rules a little bit.
And maybe that's an episode for us to cover, like what is healthy eating and what does it look like, especially for a runner?
That would be like 7 episodes.
I know. Exactly.
That has become such like a religion thing, right? It used to be you don't talk about, but you don't ask people what they do, or you don't ask them how much money they make, religion and politics. And now you got to add like food and a couple other things. So let's say Dopey's here. People are packing up their suitcases. They're going to get ready to head to Florida, and they've done the training. They feel good about it. Let's say, they've completed at least 80%, as you have said, and they're good to go. What should they be throwing in their suitcase? What are some things to bring along to make sure that you're patching yourself up, recovering well, maybe even a couple of runner emergency things?
Well, yeah, so that's a good point. I think the first thing you have to think about is your nutrition. So the nutrition that works for you. So in your training, if you're going over 90 minutes of running, you should absolutely work on what nutrition is best for you. So that's like goos, gels, something along those lines that basically like, your GI tract does well with. You're not going to get sick. You're not going to get nauseous. You're not going to have to go number 2. So those are things you're going to need to take with you. I would also take a Body Glide. That is also a non-negotiable, period. I don't think anything else on the market works better than Body Glide, period. So don't do Vaseline. Don't do like Trail Toes. Don't do all these other brands. Just do Body Glide. It's just the best there is, period.
One of the things with Body Glide that I didn't know this until you saw me prepping for a race one day, Body Glide your toes. Not just, you want to do anywhere that your skin's going to rub against itself, but you taught me to do my toes.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically when I get ready for a marathon, because you don't want to be 20 miles in and be like, oh my God, all you can think about is that you should have put Body Glide on a certain body part. You don't want that thought happening. So for ladies, around bra straps for sure. For gentlemen, around waistlines and groins. So basically put it on right on the inside of your legs, and then put it on your toes and under your armpits, on your nipples, that kind of thing if you're a guy. And if I know a lot of guys that actually bleed out of their nipples when they run, so put Band-Aids on them. That's an important thing. So, you just want to make sure that you're just like protecting yourself there. I think if you do Body Glide, you don't need to bring like blister patches or anything, but it is, well, but you shouldn't need to bring blister patches. So like if you're running numerous days back to back to back, I do think bringing some blister patches or something like that. Like I know KT Wave or KT Tape makes some. There's a bunch of different. Yeah. And then that's another good point. So a KT Wave is a PEMF device, and it's also made by KT Tape. And basically that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in that, basically, it just kind of helps to take away some aches and pains in some different areas. You have a sore calf or hammy or something like that, a sore knee. It's basically a pulsed electromagnetic frequency device that you just kind of tape to your body, and it just runs kind of a current through your body to basically help it heal in that area. And then, it's probably smart to bring some Epsom salts, because if you can take some recovery baths at night before you go to bed, that would be smart. That does actually work. And, one supplement I didn't mention is magnesium. That can be very beneficial. So you can bring glycinate. That's going to be, or bisglycinate. That's going to be the best route for it to get into the system. So magnesium, glycinate. And, in addition to that, I think you're going to want to bring some actual tape, some actual KT tape. So that would be, something that, if you run the 5K and you tweak your hammy, well, then you have it for the 10K now. So you basically can do that. You can probably just get that at the expo if you forget it. And then I also think you should have a pair of like recovery sandals that is smart to walk around in that day. So for me, that's UFOs or Birkenstocks. And so basically that just helps to let your foot breathe and just relax and just kind of take pressure off your back and your hips. And so, that's smart for the day, for the rest of the day after the race that you feel comfortable with. Am I missing anything?
What are your thoughts on compression socks?
I think that is a study show that the people that like the feeling of it, it actually does do a little bit of benefit. And the people that don't like the feeling of it, it doesn't do a benefit. And so what that really means is that like everybody's fascia is different. And somebody has really tight fascia, they can't really separate their skin from their fascia. Then compression socks is just a horrible situation. It's just creating way more compression in the system. We know that compression or compartment syndrome is a thing. Basically, some people's fascial compartments are already so tight. So the last thing you want to do is add, gasoline to the fire on that one. So, but for me, I tend to like it because I'm a little bit loosey-goosey. My skin's loosey-goosey. My fascia is looser. So I like the containment of it. And so if you don't like the feeling, just don't wear it. There's no performance benefit. It's really just mechanical. It's basically just, helping your fascia tighten up a little bit if it is already loose.
I got a question for you. All right, I'm hurting. It's been a couple of days. I want to take an Advil or a Tylenol. I've heard that Tylenol is better, that Advil is not something normally that you would want to take during especially a really long, grueling race. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on that, to be honest with you. I think that, I'm not a medical doctor, so it's hard to fully answer that question. But I will say that I think it's just best to take whatever you're used to taking. I think that's the most important thing because there's also naproxen and there's ibuprofen and naproxen, which are two of the basic NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. And they work on two different ways, first of all, and in two different platform or pathways. So I think it's just important to understand like what your body already just is used to. And I don't personally like to take them, even if I feel pretty rotten, like if something's flared up, because I like to try to work things out naturally. And one of the ways you can do that naturally is taking fish oils. Can be a natural anti-inflammatory. So Nordic Naturals is a good fish oil company for that. So having some fish oils will just help lower the inflammation in the body. And so that is another supplement that can really help benefit this situation. But if you're just in dire straits and something is really bad, then yeah, you probably want to take close to 800 to 1,000 milligrams of whether it's naproxen or ibuprofen the day before the race.
Awesome. Thank you.
So in between race days now, where does the role of heat and cold come in? One or the other, both, like doing ice baths or getting heating pads. Again, not necessarily for anybody who's injured, but just starting to feel the waking up early, the miles and things like that.
I mean, both would be good in different ways. Like, I think if you're going to, take an ice bath after the race, you want to take it, at some point, a little bit closer to the actual event. So that way you're not taking it right before bed. And if you want to lean into heat more, like you want to go, I probably wouldn't go into a sauna, but if you wanted to lean into like a hot bath, like I said, with Epsom salts, then you would do that a little bit closer to bed. And that just has to do with helping out with your sleep. So you really don't want to go to bed cold, like from like an ice bath. So kind of just lean a little bit more into that closer to the actual event itself. So say you finish the run by 10, then probably try to ice bath by noon or 1. And I don't think one is better than the other, to be honest with you. I think that some people, and again, this just goes back to routine. So I wouldn't do anything that you're not used to. Most people are more likely to have done a hot bath before versus a cold bath. So, that's why that tends to probably get a little bit more favoritism. So probably lean a little bit more into that. If a particular area is really sore, say your ankle is really sore, like your Achilles or your knee, then I don't think it's unwise to ice it at some point after that run, maybe even a couple of times. And then, but at least ice it for 20 minutes before you go to bed. And I would only do that if it's like insulated, but I wouldn't go out of your way to ice things just for the sake of icing things. So you kind of want to lean a little bit more into heat.
All right. So everybody tells us the night before, and even Disney, carb up, baby. You're going to have that big pasta dinner. Sometimes they sponsor a big pasta dinner. What are your feelings about?
Or they used to make you pay $100 for it.
That's
Do you remember that?
I forgot about that.
I mean,
oh my
of course,
gosh.
it was an awesome Disney pasta dinner at Epcot, but it was the night before the race.
But it was the night before the race. What are your thoughts on carb loading?
It's a real thing and you should definitely do it, but not the night before the race. Yeah. So unless you really like the porta potties at Disney, if you really like the porta potties at Disney, then listen to what Disney tells you. No, definitely don't do it the day before. Your last heavy meal should be the morning before the race. And this is considering any event over 90 minutes. If you're running a 5K or 10K and you're less than 90 minutes, then don't carb load, period. But if you're running the half and the full, you're more than likely going to be over 90 minutes, then you definitely want to carb load. And then your last big meal should be the day before the race. So Dopey is interesting though, because you're going to run the half before the marathon. So say you finish the 10K and you want to carb load for the half and the full, then you finish and then your next meal would be the big one. But then you're going to have to eat that night again of the 10K, another pretty good meal to then survive into the full marathon. So this is a little bit of a unique scenario. So you're going to have to kind of break this rule a little bit for the actual half marathon, but that's in lieu of the obvious marathon at the end of the tunnel here. So, but the meal after the half would be your last big meal. That night before the marathon, basically just eat something small, like maybe a salad and just a little bit of bread or something like that, but just a small little meal, not a big deal. But that kind of lunchtime meal is going to be your last big one. But you should carb load, anywhere from 3 to 5 days out. So you want to start early in the week. You want to start probably Monday or Tuesday. And carb loading isn't, you don't get the license to eat, ice cream after every meal and go crazy with it. It's really only a couple hundred calories of carbs a day. So maybe just an extra piece of bread, a little extra scoop of rice, not much more than that. I mean, it's just leaning a little bit more into carb heavy meals, not at the expense of your protein. So that's the way to think of it.
So now you're talking about the big meals, and especially for Dopey, where, as you mentioned, it breaks the rule a little bit because you have the half that you're carb loading for and then the full. So in between maybe their biggest meal, let's say around brunch after the half or right after the 10K, are there like certain snacks or like not like specifically what to eat, but like certain time frames to maybe eat smaller bunches to help with the carb loading and not have it be such a big meal, but at the same time prepping for that full at the end of the 4 days? Or
I mean, I think that's a unique idea. And I mean, at the end of the day, like however you break up the calories, I think is just however you break up the calories. Whatever's more comfortable for you. I don't love grazing like that so much. Like I tend to just want to have just a good meal and just enjoy the situation there.
Schedule issue.
Yeah. And that's probably true. Yeah. But I think if you are used to eating that way, you don't like a bolus of food, then yeah, absolutely. Just take it how you need to get it in.
All right. So we've survived Dopey. We did a great job. Everybody got a PR and it's over. What do you do next? Like you just come off this big high and you were anticipating this. I've been 28-week training plan. What do you do to make sure that you follow up with whatever you need to do as far as running, but then how do you mentally do something like that and then stop?
I mean, how do you guys deal with it? I mean, honestly,
Usually prepare for 20.
And we sign up for the next one while we're there. So we've already got that next one.
We're already signed up for the next one before we're there.
Yeah, we have the springtime surprise. For those of you, there's another one, springtime surprise.
Yes.
We'll be getting into that one.
And
next.
we're doing that challenge too.
Yeah.
So it's 3 days.
Yeah.
There's no full at least.
So I guess that's what we do. We just have something on the radar and plan the week when you get home that you can still, it's winter here, but you've got to get your miles in. You can't just stop running. That's the key, is you just don't come home and just stop. That was great.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose what you've built up all that time.
But you do also need to recover, because in order to have your peaks, you have to have your valleys. So what I would say is, if you do have something lined up right after Dopey, I'd probably still take a week down and I would cross train every other day. So half hour every other day is going to be enough to sustain the cardiovascular load, but there's no question that you have to let the musculoskeletal load recover. There's just no question. You should not get right back into running. I think some coaches would differ on that, but I think those coaches maybe haven't lived through as many fires maybe, and they don't quite know that if you don't play by that rule, then, and it's not a hard, fast rule, but if you don't let your body recover, that next training cycle, you just can't get to your peak fitness. You are struggling to get to that really high end stuff.
Okay.
And then one last question in preparation while we're there. Is there any particular stretches or anything after the races, maybe even after just between the half and the full, to do to help recover and stay ready for the longer distances coming down?
I think the cop-out answer is if you don't do things, then don't do things. Like, I mean, do what you're used to. I mean, I wouldn't add a new stretch in. I wouldn't go to YouTube and best stretches for after a marathon. Don't do that. It's just, if it's not in your routine, just don't do it. Weave these things into your routine. So that's, into your cycle building up. I think that's important. But I think if you're in question on that, I would just err on the side of foam rolling. That's even because a joint may not need to go through a range of motion. And if you're stretching, a traditional stretch, you have to crank that joint through a range of motion. Well, you just beat these joints up to hell on running through Disney's property. So, it's maybe not a smart idea to just wrench them through all these different motions. So I think it's probably a little bit better to err on the side of foam rolling, because then you're not cranking through the joint, but you're getting the recovery through the muscle. I think that's probably something that's smarter to lean into versus in just any traditional stretching.
And let's talk about foam rolling. If you're not familiar with it, you're going to want a foam roller and you're going to want to bring it with you. You need to have it on site for sure.
I always tell people who aren't used to, it's about to be your favorite new frenemy.
Love
to hate it.
It hurts so bad, but when you're done, it really does help with that recovery piece of it. So if you're not using it, you're just going to hurt. So it is a frenemy. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I feel like every time I foam roll, I'll hit a spot. I didn't even know that was even hurting me.
Right.
So if you listen today, you're super ready for Dopey. Dr. Leo brought all of his wisdom. The only thing left is for you to make sure you have the cute costume. Speaking of which, what are your costumes?
Oh man, now I'm on the spot. All right. For the 5K, I'm a Dalmatian.
Yeah, Naomi picked that one.
For the 10K, I think I'm Prince Eric.
Yeah, look, you even knew his name.
Okay.
Nice job.
And then for the half, I am Mickey.
No.
Or Abu. Or no, Aladdin. Aladdin. Okay.
He was like, I'm going to be Abu and you could be Jazz. And I'm like, okay.
I thought that was the prince's name. I thought Aladdin was the genie. I think that's what's the genie's name.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I just want to defend my husband really quick that his first time ever at Disney was for our wedding, which I managed to twist his arm in making our post-wedding trip to Disney by conveniently having it fall in Star Wars race weekend. So it was like, hey, we get to go run. And then meanwhile, we can also do the parks. So that was his very first time at Disney. And he didn't really start getting to Disney movies until we had our now 4-year-old toddler. So in his defense.
Yeah, and that's funny. So, but I did know which ones they were. I just didn't know for which races. So I'm Aladdin, and then for the full, I'm Mickey.
For the full, the characters are Mickey and Minnie every year. So the January races, I don't know, is it all the races or just the half and the full that the characters don't change? Because it's always Donald, it's always Minnie and Mickey. But all the other races, and maybe the 5K and the 10K, do you know, for January?
I think it always changes.
Okay,
It's different every year.
And all the other race weekends, every race, the character assigned to the race, like for the theme changes, but not half and full in January. Little Disney trivia there for you.
And at some point, we do want to talk about the parks. We won't do that today, but what do you do when you're down there? Because you want to go to the parks, right? But you're running all these races. So what's that balance look like? So we'll cover that again.
So stay tuned.
Yep,
There's more coming.
Thank you, everyone. Leo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming here. We covered a lot, but I don't know if you have one last thing that you're like, you must know this for Dopey.
Absolutely. Just have fun. Just take your time, enjoy the experience, and just enjoy being fit, enjoy being ready, and enjoy the experience, and just let the collective energy propel you forward, because there's a lot of it. So, and make sure to stop and take pictures.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks again. See you soon. Bye-bye.